in the Two versus Brother podcast off-season team in review edition. We already talked about two of our league members. Now we're gonna talk about a third one, KMA, known as Jonathan. How you doing, Pedro?
I'm doing well, feeling much better, and let's get down and dirty into the year in review of none other than Mr. Two-time champion KMA.
That's the big question. Is he really a two-time champion? But he had a chance to go for history this year. Because we could say his last two championships were some form of luck. Now is the opportunity. Let's see what he did in year three. And again, we're gonna go with the same format as we have done. We're gonna talk about how Jonathan did with the draft. We're gonna go over some transactions, his main transactions, and how he did with that. We're gonna talk about what if he had the schedule. How would he do if he had the easiest schedule in the league? Then
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna talk about what went well, what went bad, and then we're gonna go on to the future. So let's go on directly to the draft. KMA had the fourth overall pick in the draft. Um, Actually, number
Yeah,
five. He had
five,
number five.
five.
Yeah, he had number five to start off, and he went with an interesting strategy, right, Pedro? He went kind of like against the norm. The last couple of years in fantasy football, people have gone with the zero running back strategy, but KMA
Mm-hmm.
went the other way around. He went actually with three running backs: Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, and
Mm-hmm.
Derrick Henry. How you
Definitely.
think he did with those picks?
Well, Fredo, just to have a quick recap. Obviously, I bring up the Yahoo stuff, and Mr. KMA, according to the billion-dollar company Yahoo, said that he was going to be. He gave him an A+ rating, and have him with a projection of 12-2, only losing two games. So that's huge. Now, did it actually happen that way? Now, looking at the draft, Yahoo gave him an A+, but already in the first pick, a huge derailment with CMC being out for the year,
Well,
basically.
I'll tell you this, and starting there in the first round, Pedro, that
Mhm.
Christian McCaffrey picked, I think it was a high risk. That's why I totally disagree with the Yahoo pick, and I did not like it at that day either. That they gave him an A+.
Mhm.
Because Christian McCaffrey, yes, he has been great, but already he's reaching to an age that basically, he could get hurt at any moment. And there were already
Mhm.
rumors that maybe potentially Christian McCaffrey. Remember, he didn't play all preseason.
Yeah.
We did have the draft early on, but there was some rumblings about Christian McCaffrey, and he went ahead with his fifth overall pick and picked Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, yes, he did. CMC everybody usually has him as a lock in. Yes, he did have some issues in the beginning of the year where he didn't practice, and but the thing is that no one knew anything. It was very cloak and dagger the way the San Francisco organization set that up, where no one knew he wasn't going to play until pretty much what is it, like 30 minutes before the game. So
Week one, yeah.
yeah, so it's very unfortunate for Mr. KMA, but he did bounce back in round two, and he did pick up Kyron Williams. Now, Kyron Williams was one of the guys that we thought that was going to go in the first round, but he did drop. Now, just doing the calculation, because I did do the calculation again for this time around. See, obviously we know CMC didn't do well. I'm not going to get into that. But Kyrie Williams had an average draft position of 18. Now, I expected Kyrie Williams to go earlier. I tend to go into the camp of getting running backs first, but then again, me and KMA have a different strategy than everybody else. Now, his he picked him up at number 15. So that was in the middle of the second round. and his actual ranking for the year was 27, and his RB rank is 7. So at the end of the day, it wasn't that far off. Kyrie Williams was pretty good
and consistent.
and consistent throughout the year, which is strange because Kyrie Williams has had a little bit of an issue with injuries in the past. So kudos to him. Now we move on to the third pick, and this was a guy that Derrick Henry, where everybody thought Derrick Henry was gonna drop off. This was gonna be a year he drops off, but obviously KMA had the foresight to think ahead and know that yes, we are gonna get some touchdowns vultured by the quarterback. Yes, this is a new team, but this guy is consistent. He's always been good no matter what. Derrick Henry had an average draft position of number 13. He drafted him at 25.
That's a good pick.
Actual position when it comes to his pit, like what he produced over the year, is number 11, and his RB rank is 4.
Okay.
So that is very good. A very good pick, masterful pick by Mr. KMA.
And I'll tell you this. I think that pick of Derrick Henry, he loves Derrick Henry. If you have looked at his previous teams, he has had Derrick Henry. Actually, was his running back for the last 2 years. So he had him for a third year on his team. But I think what happened of him getting Derrick Henry, because I heard rumblings during the draft, I picked early third round, so I had 2 picks ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
He was targeting Josh Allen because that's his quarterback. He loves Josh Allen. Basically, Josh Allen was one of the difference for him to win the championship.
Correct.
I felt that if I wanted to get there, I needed to get Josh Allen, and that was the guy who I wanted from the beginning. So right before him, I took Josh Allen, and I think that threw a wrench, and he ended up getting Derrick Henry, and which at the end, was a good pick for Derrick Henry. But I think he would have probably picked Allen instead of Henry.
Most likely, correct.
But so, I mean, the first 3 rounds, if you look at it, he did good, with the exception of McCaffrey, Kyrie Williams, Derrick Henry did well. Not many people can say that from the draft they had 2 good running backs.
Yeah.
But after, and here's where the problem ended with Jonathan. And just to give him the review on Jonathan's team, Jonathan is a 2-time champion. He didn't make the playoff. He ended the season as a 6th seed, and then ended up losing to Ralphie in the first round. So he was basically breaking down. But one of the main reason why KMA did not repeat it as a champion is what happened after round 3. His first top wide receiver was DK Metcalf.
Yes.
And DK Metcalf, I can say he's a good wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Good wide receiver, solid, but not for a number 1 receiver. Not for him to be number 1. Especially, after the previous year, they had a quarterback with Geno Smith. You don't know. So that was already a questionable pick, but since he went with the 3 running back strategy, there was no good wide receivers after that. And then in round 5, he ended up getting Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
After that, and of course, I mean that pick, he felt that Patrick Mahomes, because he did tell me in the draft, maybe because he wanted Josh Allen, that Mahomes was gonna do much better than Josh Allen, and I mean, indeed, that was not the case.
No, it was not. Definitely, it wasn't, Fredo. Now let me see if I can pick this up, because I did write down some information on DK Metcalf, but I need to tell you exactly how it went. I'm trying to look for him, but is for some reason the Yahoo, the $1 billion company, is not allowing me to pick this stuff up. Let me see. 1 second, Alfredo. Now, I do have on DK Metcalf, he had an average ADP of 38. And he was drafted at 36, so he was basically right there. Now, the actual of what he gave was 83, and the wide receiver rank was 32. But if you remember correctly, DK Metcalf had a hot beginning. He was hot in the beginning of the year. Yeah. So I'm just trying to see if I could pick it up now, so I can show you, so I can tell you what happened. He did lose. He was out for 2 games, and then he went into the bye and came back. Had a decent game, but every game after that he was bad.
Well, his first 4 games, the 3 out of 4 were over 100 yards. Actually, 2 games. I'm looking at it here against New England. He had 10 catches for 129 yards, and then against Detroit, 7 catches for 104.
Yeah,
but that's it. But after that, he didn't get no more 100 yards. He did not hit 100 yards after that.
Yeah, he had bad, like I'm saying, he had bad games, and then he got injured. But after the injury, he just wasn't himself, and the team pretty much put everything on the other wide receiver. He did have he wasn't a rookie. He was a second-year wide receiver. I forget the guy. There you go. And you have JSN that came in and pretty much took that role. And then from that point forward, it was more of a 1A, 1B situation, with 1B being a DK Metcalf. But even though he did have the targets, he did not have the receptions.
And that's the thing. With DK Metcalf, he's not a receiver that's going to give you 110, 120 catches. He'll get his 1,000 yards, but he's not going to give you many catches. He'll have some breakout games, a little bit inconsistent. Actually, as we continue moving along with his wide receivers, and again, these are opportunities that maybe he could have, maybe done differently. When the opportunity for Mahomes came, are you able to see, because Alex picked up Malik Neighbors?
Correct.
Did Jonathan pick ahead of, because I know there was some trade there with Alex.
Yeah.
Did Malik Neighbors was picked up before Patrick Mahomes?
I have to look. I'm looking at it now. Hold on. Because let me see. Malik Neighbors was the pick right before. So if I'm looking at it correctly, hold on. This is, since we do have a snake setup. Oh no. It was right after. So he picked up DK Metcalf and Malik Neighbors was still on the board.
Yeah. He could have picked up he could have gotten Malik Neighbors instead of DK Metcalf.
Yeah, it was. But at the end of the day, that I'm looking over there at that round. We're looking at the 4th round here, and there wasn't really like a lot of in that round. We did have a lot of misses. Myself missing with Sam Laporta. We had Armando with Rashee Rice. Obviously, Rashee Rice got injured. It wasn't necessarily a miss, but but then you do have a few bright spots where you picked up Devonta Smith, Mike Evans, and of course Malik Neighbors. So and then we do have Jalen Hurts. Even though I would have picked a quarterback of that guy that high, but Lex and his infinite Eagles knowledge got him there. So
yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there was a miss there. Now, if you go to the 6th round, going down after he ended up getting Stephon Diggs. I mean, I obviously Stephon Diggs. I mean, I'll tell you this: Jonathan probably broke the record of having the oldest team ever assembled for fantasy football, because all over past 30 years old, Stephon Diggs again. I love Stephon Diggs, but as I predicted his downfall, he in Houston he didn't do anything. He was part with 3 wide receivers. Ended up getting him in the 6th round. Now he could have at that time, maybe in the 6th round, could have gotten Joe Burrow, And then in the fifth round, he could have taken wide receiver, in which there wasn't much. Let me see in the fifth round.
Well, I
Uh,
do have to say, Alfredo, you that I would disagree emphatically with what you just said about Stephon Diggs. I know a lot of people thought that the big dog over there in Houston was not going to be Stephon Diggs, but it was pretty much a pecking order, and it was A and B, one A and one B. It's because Stephon Diggs pretty much didn't have a bad game the whole time that he was playing over there before he got injured. The last game of him being injured, he had 9 targets, 5 receptions, and 81 yards, and that's when he got injured.
okay, but he didn't even hit 100 yards. He only had 2 touchdowns all year long.
Mm-hmm. And
So
he had 2 touchdowns.
he had 3 touchdowns.
He had 3 touchdowns, but it's not. Think about it, Alfredo. It is not about touchdowns, and touchdowns are the flukiest thing that you could hope for in fantasy football.
No, yeah.
He had targets. He had targets 9, 8, 7, 9, 6, 7. It's and the receptions, of course. This is a PPR league, so one game he had 10 receptions. 19 points.
Yeah, he did. But in a group of 3 wide receivers, I mean, I don't know. It was just too high for me for someone that has 3 wide receivers, and it already passed in a 1-year contract. 30 something years old, and then he got hurt, so that didn't even help him.
Yeah, no, of course. Who can predict injuries? That's the problem, and that's the biggest problem in his team. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is the age of the team. Obviously, the older the players are, the more likely they are to get injured. CMC, he got injured. You had DK Metcalf, which is not old, but his style of play, which is very physical, will make it so that you get hurt. You had Stephon Diggs get hurt. It's unfortunately that's just how the cookie crumbles when you have an older team.
No. More of an example of injury and players old. George Kittle was a good pickup. DeAndre Hopkins, 8th round, also was a bust. Deontay Johnson was a bust for him. Ezekiel Elliott, 10th round, bust. Jordan Addison, he had him all year long, solid. Trey Benson didn't do nothing, and then Zach covered it. So looking in his draft, I know Yahoo gave him an A+, but I think they gave him an A+ just based on those 3rd round. But he waited too long to get a wide receiver, and that was his downfall. Not only that, since this was a keeper situation, he did not set himself up. Now, later on as we talk about the keeper situation, he has one of the worst keeper situations because his team is old. So nobody, his best players were picked early on. So
yeah, definitely. And then he doesn't have anybody for late, but we'll discuss that when we get there. And we all know that he sold out to win a championship this year, but
he wanted to trick people. Now let's go on to the next category. Let's look at his transactions.
Yes.
Obviously his waiver pickups, trades. What were you able to discover about KMA?
Well, on KMA, the trades that he ended up making, none of those trades really helped him. He, from what I see here, made 4 trades. Let me see if I can get in here. Give me a second. Research. Transactions. The transactions. All teams, no, just KMA. And we're going to look at trades. He made 1, 2, 3, 4 trades all year. That aforementioned trade, the aforementioned player, George Kittle, you discussed George Kittle, which was a very good tight end. In the beginning of the year, it was great. I do not understand why he ended up trading away George Kittle for Travis Kelce.
And he gave Jalen Waddle.
He gave up Jalen Waddle because look, I understand Jalen Waddle was not good at the time, and then just going back to that situation with Jalen Waddle, Jalen Waddle ended up being traded to no Mr. No Excuses. And then Jalen Waddle, for some reason, found his way back to his team later on. So it was it earlier on for Deontay Johnson. It was that Deontay Johnson trade with Jalen Waddle that he did make with Mr.
Yeah, he got Jalen Waddle for Deontay Johnson. Remember, he drafted Deontay Johnson. He
Mhm.
traded him for Jalen Waddle. Remember, that deal hurt KMA because right after that trade, Armando hit the jackpot with Deontay Johnson. There were 2 weeks there with
Mhm.
Carolina, and Deontay Johnson did very good. And
Yes.
actually it helped Armando. So there were 2 victories that helped them that maybe could have helped,
Yeah.
KMA.
Yeah, he had 3 really good games and one a sandwich in the middle that was not good. But then, what do you expect with a bad team? But yeah, man, it's he hit that jackpot in that trade. But then again, the beneficiary of that trade was not KMA. So just looking at every trade that he did, even the trade with Travis Kelce and Christian Kirk, Christian Kirk got injured.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
basically almost like what is it, like a few weeks later, and it was not a good trade. Mr. No Excuses pretty much won that trade
Yeah, he won that trade,
very easily.
very
Then very, very easily. Now I look again and I see another one. Zach Charbonnet for Blake Corum. Zach Charbonnet actually was pretty decent ending the year, but then he got Blake Corum, and Blake Corum got injured or was not relevant, pretty much. So
No, and actually, and then looking at the trade that he did with Danny, yeah, this more towards the end.
mhm.
He gave up Stephon Diggs. So remember, Stephon Diggs was already in IR.
Yeah,
He traded him. He gave also Rico Dotto, and Rico was a
Mhm.
very good. Ended up doing good for the Cowboys. He was the #1 running back for the Cowboys all year long. He was
Mhm.
not, let's say, excellent, but he was solid. So
Yes,
he traded him away for Tank Dell, Jordan Mason, and Caleb Williams.
and then and they all got injured.
And they all got injured. Danny won that trade, actually.
Yeah, Danny really got that trade. He beat him really bad on that trade. Now this is and I have to go and I have to say things. Say it honestly. He in that trade with Danny pretty much bent him over on that one. But the thing is, it wasn't. When you looked at it, the trade at the time, it didn't look that bad. But then how everything just transpired, IR Tank Dell, Jordan Mason IR, Caleb Williams got injury issues, but then he also sucked. It's not really. There's not a lot of good when it comes to trades. Now transactions a little bit different. I do have a couple good transactions here that he did, and one miss, one big miss that I have to, well, two big misses. He did pick up earlier in the year, Mister. Let me see if I have it here. Jerry Jeudy. He picked up earlier in the year Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy in the beginning of the year wasn't great, but he did put up decent numbers here and there, 12 points, 9 points, 8 points. That's a guy that you could pretty much plug in a week that you needed somebody, but he dropped him later on. Now, another one that he picked up and then dropped was Sutton,
Yep.
Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton was very good towards the end of the year with Bo Nix. Very good. I would venture to say that he was a top 10 wide receiver for a lot of those weeks at the end of the year. So that was a miss there. Now,
Actually, he picked up, just looking at it, he picked up Cortland Sutton for Ray McLeod, which ended up good. But then it's 20 minutes later, he dropped him for Antonio Gibson.
yeah,
Cortland Sutton would have been that wide receiver that could have helped him, and he dropped him.
and he dropped him. And he dropped him. So that was a big miss. Obviously, no one can see the future, but Cortland Sutton was another guy that was actually doing well. Now onto the big pluses that he got. He picked up Khalil Shakir.
Yeah,
and,
solid.
which was a very solid pickup. Gave him some good production. And on top of that, which I think these two were better pickups than Khalil Shakir, were Jalen McMillan. What Jalen McMillan did extremely well towards the end of the year when we had who was it that went down?
Godwin.
When Chris Godwin went down, and he did extremely. He picked up the slack where Godwin was not there, which was big, which is big. So we would expect that next year he would do well. Adam Thielen is another guy. Adam Thielen, towards the end of the year, when he finally decided to play, he
But
did very well as well.
he picked up. Okay, so he picked up McMillan.
Hmm.
But why didn't he end it? Because I'm looking at his roster.
And he didn't keep him.
He didn't keep him, right?
Oh wow, no, he didn't keep him. What did he do with McMillan? Give me a second.
Yeah, he dropped him. Yeah, he picked him up and then he dropped him. October 27th.
Oh wow.
Yeah, yeah, he picked him up and then he dropped him.
Eh, Well, it's only Adam Thielen then. Khalil Shakir and Adam Thielen, which at the end of the day, those two are very to me look very good.
He picked
But
him up. Okay, so he picked him up on October 23, and then 4 days later he dropped him. I mean, Zach Charbonnet was okay, solid, but still, he needed wide receivers, and he gave it away.
he gave it away.
So,
But at the end, he did keep Khalil Shakir until late, and then Adam Thielen. Obviously, Adam Thielen once he came back, looked like he could be the security blanket down over there in that team. So it looked pretty good. And then Khalil Shakir, obviously, it with the steady hands that he has, it was a PPR monster. So
yeah, looking at his in the playoff matchup when he faced against Ralphie in the playoffs,
mhm.
looking at his team, he had um yeah, he had Shakir, Adam Thielen. He said so. He's at Kyron Williams, Derrick Henry, Travis Kelsey, DK yeah, Zach Carbonet. Yeah, so basically, we
He could have used Cortland Sutton in that situation. It's not. He could have used Cortland Sutton in that situation because looking at that game where he lost, Travis Kelsey gave him a pretty much 6 points. And let me see really quick because Mister No Excuses was also in the playoffs. Let me see what was it that he put up because he did keep George Kittle. Yeah, he gave him 10 points. It wasn't that big of a deal, but
okay.
yeah, it's very telling in that situation because he had combined from his wide receivers that he had the 5, 10, and 15 points.
Yeah. Well,
So
big difference. Big difference. All right, let's move on to our next part. So we already broke down his transactions. So with this section of the schedule, so how did KMA? We know that KMA, and then let's go into again. Let's see his total points at the end of the year.
mhm.
So KMA allowed um
He allowed 1,900 points.
yeah, so the fifth, so he allowed the fifth most, and
Hmm.
then scoring, he was also middle pack. So he was actually middle of the pack for everything. So let's say
Correct.
he had the easiest schedule. What would have
Yes.
been his record?
If he would have had the easy schedule, which is yours, Alfredo, um, he ended up being 7-7. But if he would have had your schedule, which you were the easiest schedule, he would have been 10-4.
Okay. Can't say nothing for there, man. Sucks for him. He had a lot of luck on his side.
Yeah,
So
he didn't have the luck on his side this time. But yeah, he would end up being 10-4. And I believe in a lot of situations, coming into all these other guys that are to come that we need to talk about. There's going to be a lot of difference in what they would have been if they would have had your schedule. So
okay, no, I know you wanted to add that, to put it up. I mean, I'll say this. KMA, I mean, honestly, with the injuries, losing his number one, first
Again.
round pick again to
Hmm.
make it all the way to the playoffs. I give him credit because for some, losing your first round pick is done for the year, and he was able to survive. And there was a time that he was, if you would hear the power rankings that Steven and Franklin, KMA
Hmm.
was there. Unfortunately, yeah, towards the end, he was, you would see the tire already breaking loose, and that's it.
Hmm.
But he was there, so I give him credit. At least he went far enough.
Yes, he did.
So
Yes, he
let's
did.
talk about what went well for KMA.
The besides CMC, the beginning of the draft, where he picked up his running backs. That, in my opinion, he did very well there. A few and also a few transactions that he did, which pretty much helped him out. But at this in the same breath, I have to say that the things that did not do well for him were the draft and the transactions slash trades that he did. They did not. The trades did not help him. Some of the transactions that he did were not good. And of course, at the end, which is, and I will say one thing, Alfredo. Uh, Yahoo, the multi-billion-dollar company, told him in the little thing that they wrote down for him when the draft happened that his best pick of the draft, instead of being Derrick Henry, was Patrick Mahomes.
Well, and that's where I want to go with on the session of what didn't go well, and my issue with him was all year long he held on with Patrick Mahomes.
Hmm.
Obviously, in the real NFL, Patrick Mahomes could be basically maybe the GOAT or one of the greatest quarterback of all time. But for fantasy purpose, he's not a good quarterback for fantasy purpose. They have a different offense. They only hit 30 points once this year.
Hmm.
So it was not an explosive offense. And he held on. And I'm gonna give you examples of games that he needed a victory. For example, on week 14, he plays Steven. He lost 184 to 173. His quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, gave him 14 points. Now, if he would have had maybe picked up in the waiver wire Jared Goff, who was, going in and out of where waiver wire is all year long, if he would have gotten maybe, even Baker, Mayfield, some other quarterbacks,
Hmm.
that would have helped him out in the victory. Um, I'm gonna in the playoff when he faced Ralphie. Yes, he got blown out 171 to 117. But in that game, Patrick Mahomes gave him 15 points. Guess how much point Jared Goff gave him?
How much?
41, and he had him in the bench.
Wow.
So over relying on Mahomes cost him. And he could have been on his way to become, a three-time champion. And again, with not having his first round pick, but I think Mahomes and obviously not having the elite wide receiver cost him his season. Um, Another example here with he had a matchup in week 13 against Franklin. He lost 139 to 120. Mahomes gave him 16 points. He could have maybe gotten help from other receivers, other quarterbacks to prepare him. So, you know, those are big misses, and I
Yeah.
think that didn't go well for him.
Yeah, definitely, Alfredo. This was not the year that KMA hoped it would be. He expected at the end of the year to be holding the trophy, to being the only third time champ. Well, he's the only second two-time champ, but in a row, unheard of.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it
absolutely.
was very disappointing. But at the end of the day, he lost in the first round of the playoffs. Yahoo was incorrect. He did not go out and could be 12-2. He ended up being 7-7.
Okay, so let's talk about now the future. And I think the future for KMA looks very murky, very cloudy.
Very cloudy, yes.
I personally, on his futures. I mean, listening again to the other podcast, his options is either keeping McCaffrey, Kyron, and in the third round, Derrick Henry. But again, these are guys that they're, a lot of question marks with Christian McCaffrey. We don't know what's his situation. We don't know if he's going to be that Christian McCaffrey from before. So to spend a first round pick on him,
Mhm.
that's not a risk. That's not something I would want to do. Kyrie Williams, okay, second round, solid. And
Mhm.
Derrick Henry, third round. When will he fall off the cliff? That's my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
That's a big risk. So even with the three running backs, there's a lot of question marks with those running backs. I give him actually. I think he's either the worst or the second worst keeper situation that we have in our league, because I don't see anybody else for him to keep. He has. I mean, Shakir was solid. Maybe he
Mhm.
get Shakir, maybe in the 10th, get a 10th round on him.
Yeah.
But DK Metcalf's not worth it to keep. You know, I don't know. I there's nothing. I mean, nothing from his team that I like. I actually maybe will go with the route of not even keeping anybody.
No, man, I don't think that's a good idea.
Hey,
But
maybe Kyron.
what I would
Maybe Kyron.
what I would say, Alfredo, is yes, I don't know if he will keep CMC. But the guy's on a very good team, on a team that wants to do better than what they did last year. And we all know the reason why they were not as good as they were last year is because CMC was not there. He wasn't there, and when he was there, he wasn't 100%. So I believe that if CMC were to return next year, he would do a lot better than what he did. Would he be the CMC of old? Probably not. But it's better than a lot of running backs out there. And if you have a running back as in CMC that's going to catch the ball out of the backfield and he's going to run the ball as he does, even if it's not what he used to be, it's a lot better than a lot of other guys out there. So he could do a lot worse. Keeping him is, I think, for him would be imperative, unless something happens between here, maybe the draft, free agency. We don't know, but if nothing changes and CMC is going to be that top dog next year, he should be his one of his keepers. As for the rest of the guys, look, Kyrie Williams needs to be a keeper for him. He has been bit by the injury bug before, but last year he was solid.
He was good. He was good.
Last year he was solid. He did very well in that role. Catching out of the backfield, running out of the backfield. He did it very well, and that's the reason why you and me, Alfredo, spoke so highly of him as to be a first round pick next, and well, the year prior. Now it gets murky when it comes to King Henry. They are expecting to want to run it back, to try to do everything the exact same way they did last year. In that team, run the ball with Derrick Henry, and we have Lamar Jackson. I believe if they figure out the wide receiver situation over there, I think that he's not going to have stacked boxes. He's not going to even still. He's not going to have stacked boxes as much because the wide receivers aren't that good, but the quarterback can run the ball. So let's see what happens in that end. Shakir in the 10th. I expect Khalil Shakir to do better next year than he did this year. He is a very reliable a target for Josh Allen. So that's a guy that I think in the 10th is a very good value. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, he's good for
So, and if you really want Derrick Henry, you would probably get to a Derrick Henry, maybe, but I don't. If you keep CMC number one or Kyrie Williams number two, he's not going to fall to you. So we have to see what happens. Yes, I do agree that his situation is bad, but as the second worst in the league, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, as we continue through our reviews, we'll see, everybody's keeper situations. We already have broke down three league members. We have seven more to go. Pedro, Who do you have in mind to go next?
Who knows, Alfredo? It's we may just go with one of us. You know.
Let's reveal it. Let's reveal it right now.
All right, whatever. We'll do. Let's just do you, Alfredo. Since you are the runner-up this year, you made it to the finals. We'll do you.
Okay. So my team will be the next team in review, the one within the most dominant team in history. So we'll talk about that. KMA, hopefully you liked your team review. If you have anything to say, you're more than welcome to discuss it. Guys, keep on liking our channel, give your comments, and as we get closer, we have 7 more people to go. We'll break down. We'll get to you until the last person, whoever will be that last person. We'll break it down to.
Definitely, Alfredo. Thanks, guys, for watching the channel. Like, subscribe, and for that little notification bell if you want to see what's going on in the next few episodes.
All right. All right. Good.
All right, Alfredo. Yeah.